Hillary Clinton gave her characteristic practice smile as she began her opening statement. She asserted that her entire career had been dedicated to championing the needs of American families. During her time as Secretary of State, she contended that her primary focus was ensuring the nation's security. She publicly stated her willingness to accept responsibility for her decisions and learn from mistakes. These comments were perceived by some as predictable political rhetoric and familiar misrepresentations. Ben Shapiro immediately interjected, not waiting for his scheduled time to speak. His assertive questioning cut through the room as he challenged the sincerity of her claim regarding accountability. He directly demanded a simple yes or no answer as to whether she accepted responsibility for the controversial private email server. Moderator Jake Tapper tried to intervene, stating that Mr. Shapiro would have his allocated time to speak. Shapiro responded that it was a basic question, Jake, directly addressing the claim she had just made about accepting responsibility. He explained he was asking about that specific decision concerning the private server used for classified information, insisting on a binary response. Hillary Clinton's demeanor shifted noticeably as she replied that the entire matter had been thoroughly investigated by the FBI. Shapiro persisted, again demanding a clear yes or no concerning her accountability. She avoided a direct answer by noting the FBI found no evidence of criminal intent, to which Shapiro countered that this didn't address his question. Just 30 seconds into the exchange, Shapiro emphasized that she was struggling to answer a fundamental question with a direct yes or no. According to this narrative, her immediate deflection and evasion reinforced Ben Shapiro's arguments about her fundamental character. The prompt highlights that after only 30 seconds and one direct question, she appeared to be retreating from a straightforward, truthful response. This event was widely seen as Hillary Clinton's significant public return to the political center stage. The scenario was meticulously prepared, featuring an inviting audience, manageable questions, and an opportunity for her to present a presidential image and rebuild her reputation after the 2016 election loss. Then Ben Shapiro entered the studio, a young conservative wearing a visible yarmulke. He was 40 years old while she was 77. A graduate of Harvard Law and a professional debater, he had a reputation for not having lost a debate. He emphasized that his goal was not seeking political office, but rather pursuing factual clarity. He brought 3 binders filled with documentation, including FBI reports, personal correspondence, and congressional testimony, to his podium. All the materials he referenced were fully documented and verifiable. In contrast, she reportedly brought apologies, diversions, and accusations, which critics argue has been her consistent approach for 30 years. This event was framed by some as a contest between straightforward truth and long-standing political misrepresentations. The narrative contrasts facts against sentiments and evidence against justifications. It was described as pitting ethical principles against political corruption. A live television audience of 60 million Americans watched the broadcast. The events that followed were seen by many observers as profoundly damaging to Hillary Clinton's political future. The young Orthodox Jewish debater, who emphasized that lying violated the 9th commandment, was prepared to challenge a figure often accused of extensive political dishonesty. He intended to do this using her own public statements, documented evidence, and undeniable facts. Issues surrounding the email server, the Benghazi incident, the Clinton Foundation, and decades of alleged falsehoods were about to be scrutinized on national television. Hillary Clinton reportedly believed she could navigate the situation using her customary charisma. She anticipated speaking quickly, deflecting questions toward policy, and outlasting her young conservative opponent. This assessment was described by commentators as completely incorrect. It was observed that one cannot simply charm away facts, deflect concrete evidence, or outlast the eventual truth. Ben Shapiro opened his first binder to address the issue of her emails, and the classified intelligence critics say was put at risk. It was an intense confrontation that recalled her past statement, "What difference does it make?" CNN Studios in New York City was the location for this primetime event on a Thursday night. 2 podiums were set up on stage, flanked by American flags and prominent CNN logos throughout the setting. Cameras were configured for split-screen views, and a live studio audience of 200 people was in attendance. Jake Tapper stood between the podiums in his role as moderator, appearing somewhat apprehensive. There were observations that the network intended for Hillary Clinton to appear capable and for her political return to be perceived as successful. The presence of the young conservative was perceived by some as a strategy to make her appear more reasonable and mature in comparison. That, however, is not how events unfolded. Hillary Clinton emerged first, wearing a navy blue pantsuit with her hair perfectly styled, and offered a rehearsed wave to the crowd. There was polite applause given her extensive experience in numerous debates, hearings, and interviews. She demonstrated a clear understanding of how to command a stage. Ben Shapiro then walked out carrying 3 folders and wearing a black suit, blue tie, and a visible Orthodox Jewish yarmulke. He did not smile or wave, but walked directly to his podium and began organizing his documentation. The stark contrast between the two individuals was immediately evident to the viewers. It was viewed as a career politician with decades of power facing a young media entrepreneur who framed his career as a fight for truth. The dynamic was described by some observers as the establishment figure versus a conservative challenger. Jake Tapper made the introductions and announced that Secretary Clinton would present the first opening statement. Hillary Clinton stood up and took command of the stage, as she often had in the past. She expressed gratitude to Jake Tapper, CNN, and the viewing audience, claiming a life dedicated to public service. She referenced her work advocating for children as a young attorney and her time serving as First Lady. She also mentioned representing New York in the Senate and serving as U.S. Secretary of State. Her remarks were seen by critics as standard political speech-making, heavy on resume points and familiar rhetorical themes. She acknowledged that she had made mistakes in the past, adding that everyone does. However, she maintained that she had learned from those experiences and grown, while remaining committed to her guiding values. These values, she stated, included fighting for the vulnerable, confronting bullies and dictators, and making America a force for good globally. She concluded her well-delivered remarks, sat down, and smiled warmly at the camera. Jake Tapper then recognized Ben Shapiro for his opening remarks. Shapiro stood up and addressed Hillary Clinton directly rather than looking at the camera. He noted that Secretary Clinton had just claimed to take responsibility for and learn from her mistakes. He announced his intention to put that claim to the test that evening, stating he had brought evidence. He held up his folders so they were clearly visible to the television cameras. He asserted he had evidence Secretary Clinton established a private email server in her home for State Department business. He contended there was proof that classified information was housed on that server. He stated there was proof she deleted 33,000 emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. He claimed there was proof she lied about these actions repeatedly on television to the American public. He said he had evidence that when 4 Americans died in the Benghazi terrorist attack, she was immediately aware it was an act of terrorism. He claimed she had informed her daughter and foreign officials that the event was a terrorist attack. Yet, he argued, she told the American people and grieving families that it was related to a YouTube video. Critics accuse her of misrepresenting facts to families while standing near their sons' coffins. Shapiro asserted there was evidence her foundation accepted millions from foreign governments during her tenure as Secretary of State. Many of these same foreign governments had business pending before her department, which Shapiro framed as indicating pay-to-play corruption. He claimed there was evidence she had consistently been dishonest for decades on various topics, including Bosnia, emails, and Benghazi. Critics argued she was untruthful whenever it was politically convenient. He looked directly at her, maintaining a very stern and focused demeanor. He stated that the evening's purpose was not unity, but rather focusing on truth. He asserted she had spent 30 years in public life deflecting, lying, and blaming others. Tonight, he contended, she would have to answer for those actions with evidence on national television. There would be no room for excuses or deflections, only facts, he emphasized. He sat down as the audience reacted with murmurs and whispers. It was observed that this event was not the polite discussion anticipated, but rather resembled a prosecution. Jake Tapper tried to reestablish control and urged the participants to keep the proceedings respectful and civil. Shapiro calmly replied that being respectful meant being truthful, and he was being truthful. The real question, he stated, was whether Secretary Clinton would be truthful. Hillary Clinton forced a smile and said she was glad Ben had brought his extensive folders of opposition research. She suggested they focus on actual policy issues rather than rehashing recycled political attacks. Shapiro immediately interrupted her comment regarding opposition research. He stated these were FBI reports, congressional testimony, and her own emails, which he argued was documentary evidence of her actions, not opposition research, and he intended to review them systematically. Tapper made one last attempt to introduce the first question for debate. Shapiro again interrupted, stating that she had claimed in her opening remarks to take responsibility for her mistakes. He said he wanted to test that specific claim right then before moving to other topics. He asked Secretary Clinton if she took responsibility for setting up the private email server to handle classified State Department information, demanding a yes or no. The confrontation had clearly begun, with Hillary Clinton immediately placed on the defensive. Ben Shapiro opened his first folder, prominently displaying an FBI report with its official seal clearly visible to the cameras. He referenced the press conference held by FBI Director James Comey on July 5, 2016. Shapiro told her to listen carefully to Comey's exact words regarding her emails. He read slowly and clearly that there was evidence they were extremely careless in handling very sensitive, highly classified information. He looked up at Hillary and repeated the phrase, extremely careless. That was the FBI director speaking, he emphasized, not a media outlet or a political opponent. The FBI director was discussing how she handled America's secrets. Shapiro then proceeded to explain the real-world implications of that statement. Classified information, he stated, refers to secrets that could endanger American lives if obtained by adversaries. This includes the names of undercover CIA agents in hostile nations and details of ongoing military operations. It also includes intelligence shared in confidence by allies whose lives depend on maintaining secrecy. Hillary Clinton, he argued, was extremely careless with all of that sensitive information. He asked the audience to consider the gravity of being extremely careless with information that could lead to American deaths. Shapiro then detailed the specifics of her actions. In January 2009, Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State. Instead of using the secure government email system designed for classified communication, she established a private server in her home in Chappaqua, New York. He questioned why someone would take such an action. She had claimed it was for convenience, stating she did not want to carry multiple devices. Hillary Clinton tried to interrupt, reiterating that it was a matter of convenience. Shapiro abruptly stopped her. He countered that she had admitted in later interviews to carrying both a BlackBerry and an iPad, meaning she already had multiple devices. Shapiro contended that the convenience excuse was untruthful. He pressed her again to explain why she set up the private server in her basement. She claimed that many previous secretaries of state had used personal email. Shapiro was prepared to refute that claim as false. Previous secretaries, he explained, used commercial personal email accounts like AOL or Gmail, which have some security infrastructure. He argued that she did not simply use a personal account but set up her own private server, which is completely different. He noted that Colin Powell used an AOL account for some unclassified emails. In contrast, he stated, she built a dedicated server infrastructure specifically to keep her communications off government systems. He questioned her motivation for doing so. He suggested she couldn't answer honestly because the actual reason was obvious. He contended the purpose was to avoid oversight, freedom of information requests, and accountability. Shapiro continued by detailing what she placed on that basement server. The FBI investigation found 110 emails containing classified information. He emphasized that it was not just one or two mistakes, but 110 separate instances where she placed America's secrets on an unsecured system. He asked the audience to consider the significance of that number, 110 times. Some of those emails contained top-secret information, and others contained special access program information, which represents America's most sensitive intelligence and a higher classification than top secret. He argued that she stored this highly sensitive information on a basement server with security weaker than that of Gmail. Hillary Clinton attempted to defend herself by claiming those emails were not marked classified at the time. Shapiro's voice rose as he characterized that claim as another untruth. The FBI found that 3 email chains had portion markings with the letter C in parentheses, indicating they were classified. Even if one accepts for a moment her argument that most were not marked, he continued. He pointed out that as Secretary of State, she received extensive training on handling classified information. She also signed mandatory acknowledgement forms regarding her responsibility to protect classified material. He argued that material does not require a stamp for a trained professional to recognize it as classified. If discussing CIA operations, for instance, he stated, one knows that is classified. Similarly, discussing special access programs is known to involve classified information. Claiming ignorance, he argued, is tantamount to claiming incompetence as Secretary of State. The FBI investigation also revealed other details about where this information was found. Classified information was found not only on her private server, but also on her laptop and personal email account. It was present on devices belonging to her lawyer, David Kendall, who held no security clearance. He contended that she scattered America's most sensitive secrets across multiple unsecured devices and systems. He asked the audience what would happen if they did this at their own jobs. He questioned what the consequences would be for storing a company's most sensitive information on a home computer. He suggested that termination and possible arrest would be the likely outcome. But Hillary Clinton, he noted, ran for president. He then addressed what he described as even more troubling aspects. On March 4, 2015, the Benghazi Select Committee subpoenaed her emails. He emphasized that this was an official congressional subpoena and a legal requirement to preserve every email. He noted that 3 weeks later, between March 25th and March 31st, her IT team deleted 33,000 emails. He emphasized that 33,000 emails were deleted after a congressional subpoena. They didn't just delete them, he argued. They used a software program called BleachBit. He described it as a program specifically designed to permanently erase data so that it cannot be recovered even through forensic analysis. He argued that this action was not routine deletion, but the destruction of evidence. He asked if the audience could believe that after Congress issued a subpoena, she was allegedly destroying evidence 3 weeks later with specialized software. Her attorney had claimed those 33,000 emails were personal items, such as yoga routines and wedding plans. He questioned if she expected the American people to believe that exactly half of her emails as Secretary of State were personal. He asked if that was the narrative she was maintaining. Hillary Clinton attempted to respond that she had every right to delete personal emails. Shapiro strongly countered that she did not have that right after they were subpoenaed, as that constitutes obstruction of justice. He argued that once Congress issues a subpoena, there is a legal requirement to preserve those records. He stated that she does not get to decide which records are relevant, as that is the role of the committee and the courts. Deleting subpoenaed material, he asserted, is a crime. Using sophisticated software to ensure information can never be recovered, he argued, shows an intent to conceal. He indicated there was more evidence to consider. He claimed her staff also destroyed mobile devices using hammers. He said they literally used hammers to physically smash BlackBerry devices. He questioned why they would do that if the devices were simply old and unneeded. He asked why they wouldn't just delete the data instead of physically destroying the devices unless they were desperately trying to hide something. Shapiro summarized the full pattern of her actions. He asserted she set up a private server to avoid government oversight. He claimed she violated security protocols and stored classified information on unsecured systems. He stated she was subpoenaed by Congress and subsequently deleted 33,000 emails. He argued she used BleachBit to permanently erase them so they could not be recovered. He mentioned that devices were destroyed with hammers. He noted that she then claimed all of this was perfectly innocent and legal. He questioned if that sounds like the actions of someone with nothing to hide. He argued that even worse than the security violations were the lies. He proposed showing what she told the American people versus what the FBI proved to be true. Documents appeared on the screen showing side-by-side comparisons of her words versus the facts. He cited a March 2015 press conference where she stated she did not email any classified material. The FBI found 110 emails with classified information, which he characterized as an untruth. In a July 2015 CNN interview, she stated she was confident she never sent or received classified information at the time. The FBI proved the information was classified at the time, which he characterized as another untruth. In September 2015, during multiple interviews, she claimed she never sent or received classified material on her personal email. We already know about the 110 emails, so he argued this was repeatedly untruthful. He asserted she lied repeatedly on camera to the American people about national security and America's secrets. He claimed she did this knowing it was untruthful because she had seen those emails. He stated she sent those emails and knew their content. Shapiro looked directly at Hillary Clinton. He referenced her opening statement in which she claimed to take responsibility for her mistakes. He asked her directly, right then on camera with 60 million Americans watching. He asked if she took responsibility for the private server, for storing classified information on it, for deleting the subpoenaed emails, and for lying about it repeatedly, demanding a yes or no. Hillary Clinton attempted every deflection in her arsenal. She stated that the FBI conducted an exhaustive investigation and determined no charges were warranted. Shapiro countered that this was because Director Comey said no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges, not because she didn't commit the acts. He argued that Comey confirmed everything regarding the private server, classified information, and extremely careless handling. He just chose not to prosecute, which is not the same as being innocent, Shapiro argued. He asked if she took responsibility, yes or no. She stated she has said many times that using personal email was a mistake. Shapiro argued that this was minimizing the issue and not taking responsibility. He contended that taking responsibility would mean stating she violated security protocols, put classified information at risk, deleted subpoenaed evidence, and lied to the American people. He challenged her to say those words and take actual responsibility. She would not and could not say them. After all these years, investigations, and evidence, he argued, she still could not admit to her actions. The audience watched in stunned silence as a former Secretary of State appeared completely unable to answer basic questions about her conduct. Shapiro quietly suggested they move the discussion to Benghazi. He stated he wanted to discuss how she allegedly lied to the families of deceased Americans while standing next to their sons' coffins. Ben Shapiro pulled out printed emails with visible timestamps. He referenced September 11, 2012 at 10:45 p.m., while the terrorist attack on the Benghazi compound was ongoing and Americans were dying. He noted that she sent an email to her daughter, Chelsea. He read exactly what she wrote. 2 of our officers were killed in Benghazi by an al-Qaeda-like group. He asked the audience to consider the phrase al-Qaeda-like group. He argued that she knew within hours that it was not a protest or a mob angry about a video, but a terrorist group. While the attack was still happening, he contended, she knew it was terrorism. He pulled out another document regarding a phone call with the Egyptian Prime Minister the next morning, September 12th. He quoted the State Department transcript as saying, "We know that the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest." He argued that those were her own words, and that privately on September 11th and 12th, she knew it was a terrorist attack. He asked if it was correct that she knew it had nothing to do with a YouTube video and that it was planned, not spontaneous. Hillary Clinton attempted to deflect, claiming the intelligence was fluid and changing. Shapiro countered that her own email showed what she personally knew, not what intelligence reports said. He asserted that she knew and told her daughter it was al-Qaeda, and told Egypt it wasn't about the video, demanding a yes or no on whether she knew it was a terrorist attack. She could not deny her own documented emails. She claimed the situation was evolving and complex. Yes, he argued, she knew and had informed her family and foreign officials it was terrorism. He then addressed what she told the American people on September 14th at the ceremony for the 4 dead Americans at Andrews Air Force Base. He noted that she was standing next to their flag-draped coffins. He quoted her public statement, "We have seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with." He characterized that statement as an untruth. He contended that she already knew 2 days earlier that the video was unrelated and had told Egypt exactly that. But she stood in front of grieving families and blamed a video, he argued. He asked the audience to consider the moment with 4 dead Americans and their families watching, and their Secretary of State allegedly lying about how their sons died. He then referenced UN Ambassador Susan Rice on September 16th, who blamed the video on 5 separate Sunday morning shows. She called it a spontaneous protest that got out of hand, and Shapiro questioned who sent her out with those talking points and approved that message. He described what he considered to be the most troubling part of the issue. The families of the dead Americans, Tyrone Woods' father Charles Woods and Sean Smith's mother Patricia Smith, both testified under oath that she told them personally it was because of the video. He read their testimony, noting Patricia Smith testified that she said to her, "We will make sure that the person who made that film is arrested and prosecuted." Charles Woods wrote in his diary on that same day what she told him, the same thing about arresting the video maker. Both of them wrote it down at the time and testified under oath to Congress. Hillary Clinton attempted to respond that those families might be mistaken in their recollections. Shapiro, with a cold tone, asked if she was calling grieving parents liars. He argued that both wrote it down contemporaneously and testified under oath to the same thing, questioning if they were wrong and she was right. He emphasized that these were parents who lost their sons serving their country and defending Americans. He summarized that she was claiming they were mistaken when they testified she lied to them about how their sons died. He asked the audience to think about who these people are, Gold Star parents, and that Hillary Clinton was effectively calling them liars. He then offered his explanation for why she lied. In September 2012, 2 months before the election, President Obama was running on the narrative that al-Qaeda was on the run and terrorism was defeated. A terrorist attack killing a U.S. ambassador would destroy that narrative, so he argued she lied and blamed a video. He claimed she sent Susan Rice to 5 networks to blame a video and told grieving families it was about a video, all to protect the political campaign and the re-election. And he noted that the video maker, Nakula Basili Nakula, an American citizen, was arrested. He argued that he was arrested on dubious probation violation charges and imprisoned for a year, claiming an American citizen was imprisoned because she needed a scapegoat for political reasons. He then presented what he called the most revealing moment, her testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on January 23, 2013. Senator Ron Johnson asked her about the talking points and why she used the video story when she knew it was terrorism. He asked if she remembered her response. The video played with Hillary Clinton's voice sounding angry and defiant. "With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided to go kill some Americans?" The clip concluded with her asking, "What difference at this point does it make?" The clip ended and the room was completely silent. Shapiro quietly repeated, "What difference does it make?" He stated he would tell her what difference it makes. Truth makes a difference. Their families deserve the truth about how their sons died. He argued that she knew it was terrorism, yet told them it was a video, which he characterized as lying to grieving parents at the worst moment of their lives. The American people deserved the truth and had a right to know that a terrorist attack had killed a U.S. ambassador. He claimed we had a right to know that our diplomatic facilities were not secure and that terrorism remained a major threat. He asserted that she lied to protect a political narrative and an election campaign. He argued that the difference between truth and lies matters. The difference between honoring the dead and using them for political cover matters. The difference between integrity and corruption matters. And when caught in lies and asked to explain, she asked, "What difference does it make?" he noted. He argued that this reveals everything about her character. He claimed she also failed to provide adequate security. Ambassador Chris Stevens sent multiple cables requesting more security. Those requests were ignored, he noted, and 4 men died. He summarized that she lied about why they died and, when questioned, asked, "What difference does it make?" Shapiro leaned forward and asked directly if she took responsibility for the security failures in Benghazi, for lying about the cause of the attack, and for lying to the families, yes or no. Hillary Clinton could not answer directly and attempted to deflect. She claimed she had thought about those 4 brave Americans every single day. Shapiro stated that was not what he asked, repeating, "Do you take responsibility?" He asked if she took the same responsibility she claimed to embrace in her opening statement, yes or no. She would not say yes and could not say no without appearing even worse, appearing trapped by her past statements. The audience watched in silence as a former Secretary of State appeared unable to take responsibility for Americans who died during her tenure. Shapiro then suggested they talk about her foundation and the millions of dollars taken from foreign governments while she was Secretary of State. He spread financial records across his podium, including foundation donor lists, State Department meeting logs, and official documents. He stated that while she was Secretary of State, the Clinton Foundation received tens of millions of dollars from foreign governments and nationals. At the same time, many of these donors had business pending before her State Department. Shapiro characterized this as pay-to-play corruption. He offered to provide specific examples with concrete dollar amounts. He explained that pay-to-play means donating to the foundation to secure meetings and favorable treatment from the State Department, which he argued is bribery, not charity. He cited Uranium One in 2010 when a Russian company named Rosatom sought to acquire a company called Uranium One. That company controlled about 20% of America's uranium production capacity, meaning it was transferring control to Russia. The sale required approval from the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which included the State Department. He noted that while that decision was pending, individuals and companies connected to Uranium One donated $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. He emphasized that this was $145 million while she was deciding whether to allow Russia control of American uranium. Then the sale was approved, he stated. Russia got control of the uranium, and her foundation got $145 million. He asked her to explain to the American people how that is not corruption. Hillary Clinton attempted her prepared defense, claiming she had no direct role in that specific decision. He countered that she sat on the committee that approved it and her State Department had to sign off on it. Her senior staff participated in the decision-making process, he argued, even if she claimed no personal involvement. He emphasized her foundation took $145 million from interested parties while the decision was pending, arguing it was at minimum the appearance of corruption and, at worst, legalized bribery. He then offered more examples. Saudi Arabia donated between $10 and $25 million to her foundation, he noted. Qatar donated between $1 and $5 million, and Algeria donated $500,000, all while she was Secretary of State. He emphasized that these countries had significant interests before her State Department. He asked the audience to think about countries with poor human rights records donating millions to her family foundation while she was in charge of foreign policy. Algeria was noted as a particularly interesting case, as the donation coincided with State Department criticism of its human rights record. The money came in, and then the criticism softened, which he suggested was not a coincidence. Her foundation had promised full disclosure and transparency, but he argued it failed to disclose millions in foreign government donations. This information only emerged later through investigative journalism. He questioned why, if the donations were innocent, they were hidden. He then offered what he called more proof. He cited an Associated Press analysis that found more than half of the non-government people who met with her had donated to the Clinton Foundation. He repeated that out of 154 private interests who got meetings, 85 were foundation donors. He argued this was not a coincidence and was, in fact, pay-to-play. The rule, he suggested, was to donate to the foundation to get a meeting. He argued that writing a check for favorable treatment is corruption, not public service. He cited the January 2010 Haiti earthquake, a devastating disaster where billions in aid arrived. He noted her foundation got heavily involved. He claimed her brother got a sweetheart deal for gold mining, and foundation donors got lucrative contracts. He noted that Haiti is still one of the world's poorest countries. He questioned where all the aid money went. Haitian activists have protested outside her foundation offices, calling it exploitation. They say billions came in for relief, but nothing improved for actual Haitians. But her foundation got rich, her brother got a deal, and donors got contracts, which he characterized as using a natural disaster to enrich themselves. He noted that even her own daughter had concerns. WikiLeaks released emails showing Chelsea Clinton complained about foundation funds being used for personal purposes. Her own daughter expressed concerns about how the foundation money was used. Shapiro summarized his argument. While she was America's chief diplomat, her family foundation was taking millions from foreign governments and people wanting things from her. These were people needing favorable treatment, and while it might be technically legal, he argued it was corrupt and morally bankrupt. Shapiro looked directly at her and asked if she ever thought it was inappropriate to take millions from foreign governments while serving as Secretary of State. Clinton attempted to defend the foundation, saying it has helped millions globally. Shapiro stated that was not what he asked, repeating his question about a conflict of interest. He noted that she claimed the foundation was thoroughly vetted and followed guidelines, which she had helped create. He argued that she promised transparency but hid donations. He argued that she promised no new foreign government money but took it anyway. He argued that she created massive conflicts of interest and apparently didn't care. Shapiro transitioned by stating this is a pattern of lies and corruption spanning decades. He suggested they look at that pattern. Shapiro had a timeline ready with decades of documented lies displayed on screens. He asserted she has lied repeatedly throughout her entire public career. He argued these are not occasional mistakes but a systematic pattern of dishonesty. He cited her 1996 visit to Bosnia as First Lady. Years later, during her 2008 presidential campaign, she described that trip. A video clip played of her recalling landing under sniper fire. She described there was supposed to be a greeting ceremony, but instead they ran with their heads down to get to the vehicles. That was a dramatic story of a brave First Lady under enemy fire, he noted. He called it a great campaign story, but noted one problem. It was a complete lie, he argued, noting CBS News found the actual video and suggesting they watch it. A different video played, showing Hillary Clinton landing in Bosnia with a greeting ceremony featuring a little girl presenting flowers. He asked if the audience could believe she invented a story to make herself look brave. He noted that when she was caught, she said she misspoke, but argued that telling the same detailed lie multiple times over several weeks is lying, not misspeaking. He stated that more examples were coming. He cited her claim that she was named after Sir Edmund Hillary, the famous mountain climber. It was a touching story about her mother naming her after a hero. He noted one problem. Edmund Hillary did not become famous until he summited Everest in 1953 while she was born in 1947. Her mother supposedly named her after a New Zealand beekeeper who nobody had heard of yet. That's impossible, and that's a lie, he argued. He cited her 1998 appearance on the Today Show regarding the Monica Lewinsky scandal. She said this was all a vast right-wing conspiracy trying to destroy her husband. She blamed political enemies and the media, calling it all lies, but it turned out to be true, and he argued she lied. She protected her husband's political career by calling his victim story a conspiracy theory. She attacked the women who told the truth, he stated. Shapiro rapid-fired through more examples. She claimed she tried to join the Marines in 1975, but the Marines say there's no record. She claimed she was with Senator Clinton when the Twin Towers fell on September 11th, but she was in Washington. She claimed she negotiated peace in Northern Ireland, but people who actually negotiated say she only attended some ceremonial events. She claimed she was instrumental in passing the Children's Health Insurance Program, but senators who actually passed it say she played a minimal role. It is lie after lie concerning both big and small things, he argued. When reality is inconvenient, she lies, he stated. Bosnia sniper fire was a lie. Being named after Hillary was a lie. The Lewinsky conspiracy was a lie, and so on. This is not random, but a pattern over decades, he emphasized. He asked the audience to think about what this reveals, noting these are not policy disagreements but facts. They are documented, verifiable facts. She lies about easily checkable things, like the Bosnia video and birth records. He questioned why, suggesting it is because she believes she is above accountability. When the truth is inconvenient, she lies. When caught lying, she deflects, blames others, and says she misspoke. But she never admits the truth, never truly apologizes, and never takes real responsibility, he argued. Shapiro looked at the camera, speaking to America. He argued that this pattern reveals character and shows who she really is. She is a person who will say whatever serves her interests in the moment. She is a person for whom truth is optional. She is a person who believes power matters more than honesty. He turned back to Hillary and asked if she could name a single time she admitted a lie before being caught. He asked if there was just one time in her entire career. Hillary Clinton deflected, saying she thinks these character attacks are inappropriate, but he argued these are documented lies. He noted they have testimony, FBI reports, and congressional testimony arguing these are facts, not attacks. He asked again if she could name one time she admitted lying before being forced to. He asserted she couldn't because there wasn't one in 30 years. Shapiro then suggested they talk about what she really thinks of the American people and discuss contempt. Without introduction, Shapiro played a video from September 9, 2016, of her at a fundraiser calling half of Trump's supporters a basket of deplorables. The video stopped and Shapiro let it sit in silence. He repeated that she called half of Donald Trump's supporters, 30 million Americans, deplorable and other names. He emphasized these are hardworking Americans whom she called deplorable because they disagreed with her. He stated she called them bigots. He addressed the audience saying that if they voted for Trump in 2016, she called them deplorable. He said that if they go to church, own a gun, or live in rural America, according to Hillary Clinton, they are deplorable. He argued this was not a slip of the tongue, but what she actually thinks, and a sign of elite contempt. He asked the audience to think about what she's really saying. He argued she thinks they are deplorable because they are different from her. He argued she views Americans in two categories, those who agree with her and those who are deplorable. He said there is no room for honest disagreement, just contempt. He asked what she did after losing the 2016 election, noting she wrote a book called What Happened, and arguing that voters rejected her. He argued that voters rejected her corruption, lies, and contempt. He noted that in her book she blamed everyone else and started counting off the people she blamed. He listed WikiLeaks, content farms, and everyone else she blamed except herself. He argued she made every excuse except for the truth. He questioned if it never occurred to her that voters might have rejected her for who she is. He suggested that calling voters deplorable did not make them want to vote for her. He argued that her elite contempt for working people turned them away. He suggested that her corruption and dishonesty were disqualifying, but she always blames others. He noted she takes zero responsibility. He stated that the real reason she lost was because voters didn't trust her. He cited exit polls that showed honesty was a major factor, and voters found her untrustworthy. He argued that it's not Russia's fault, but hers, and that 30 years of lying created that perception. He argued she represented the establishment in a change election, offering more of the status quo. He argued that that is not misogyny, but voters rejecting insider corruption. He criticized her for running a terrible campaign and ignoring key states. He argued she assumed she would win and had no message other than, "I'm not Trump." He said she couldn't articulate why she wanted to be president, beyond "it was my turn." He cited the vote counts in states she lost to illustrate his point. He argued she might have won if she had campaigned in Wisconsin. He argued she might have won if she had connected with working-class voters instead of calling them deplorable. He argued she lost winnable states through her own failures. Shapiro looked directly at her and asked if she ever truly took personal responsibility for her loss, yes or no. Clinton used the passive voice saying mistakes were made, but he pressed her to say, I made mistakes. She could not and would not say those words. She was still unable to accept responsibility, which Shapiro argued is the pattern seen all night. He argued that it's the same pattern every time: deflect, blame others, and refuse responsibility. He characterized that as pathology, not leadership. He gathered his evidence and posed a final question, standing at his podium as a young man with documentation facing a career politician who had lost the presidency, then summarized his proven points for the large audience. Secretary Clinton, he stated, set up a private email server in her basement for State Department business. He charged that she violated security protocols and stored classified information on unsecured systems. He noted she deleted 33,000 emails after Congress subpoenaed them. He charged she used BleachBit software to permanently destroy those emails. He stated she had devices destroyed with hammers and then lied about it repeatedly. He cited FBI Director Comey's statement that she was extremely careless with classified information. He noted she has never taken responsibility. He noted that 4 Americans died in Benghazi and that she knew it was terrorism, but told the American people it was about a video. He stated she stood next to coffins and lied to families about how their sons died. He stated she sent Susan Rice on 5 Sunday shows to repeat that lie. He charged she did this to protect a political campaign and President Obama's re-election. He noted that when questioned in Congress, she asked, "What difference at this point does it make?" He noted she has never apologized to those families. He stated that while she was Secretary of State, her foundation took tens of millions from foreign governments. He cited Uranium One interests donating $145 million, while she approved giving Russia control of American uranium. He stated that more than half the private people who got meetings with her were foundation donors, which he characterized as pay-to-play corruption. He noted she has never explained these conflicts of interest. He argued she lied repeatedly for decades about Bosnia, Edmund Hillary, Monica Lewinsky, emails, and Benghazi. He characterized it as a pattern of dishonesty spanning her entire public career. He noted that when caught, she deflects, blames others, and says she misspoke. He argued she never truly admits lying, never genuinely apologizes, and never takes real responsibility. He stated she called 30 million Americans deplorable because they disagreed with her. He characterized that as elite contempt for working-class voters. He stated she lost the 2016 election and blamed everyone but herself. He stated it is everyone's fault but hers. He noted she has never said, "I failed, I ran a bad campaign." Shapiro paused to let all of that sink in for the national audience, and his voice became quieter and more serious. He said this was the moral framework, stating that as an Orthodox Jew, he takes the 10 Commandments seriously. He cited the 9th commandment, "You shall not bear false witness." He put it in simple words, "Do not lie." Lying is not just bad politics, Secretary Clinton, he argued. It is a moral failure. He asked her to think about what that means. God gave us truth as a gift, he stated. Truth allows society to function, trust to exist, and justice to be served. When leaders lie, he argued, they corrupt everything. He charged she has violated the 9th commandment repeatedly and without remorse. He stated she has spent 30 years lying about big things, small things, national security, and personal stories. He argued she lies when truth is inconvenient and when it protects her power. He argued she lies reflexively, instinctively, and constantly. That is not just political dishonesty, but moral corruption. He argued she has corrupted truth itself. Shapiro looked directly at Hillary Clinton, his voice calm and quiet. Secretary Clinton, after everything discussed, all the evidence, documented lies, corruption, contempt for voters, and putting herself above truth, duty, and country. After a long pause as the cameras focused on them, he asked, "Why should anyone trust you about anything?" The question hung in the air amid total silence in the studio. He asked the audience to think about that question after everything they just heard. He asked why anyone should trust her. He asked why Americans should believe her, given her 30-year pattern of lying. He asked why they should trust her with power when she has abused every position she has held. He asked why they should respect her when she has shown only contempt for them. He asked why they should believe she will take responsibility when she has never done it before. He asked why they should think she will serve the country when she has only served herself. He asked for just one reason why she deserves trust, credibility, and why Americans should believe a word she says. Hillary Clinton sat at her podium with 60 million Americans watching and waiting for an answer. She attempted her standard deflections, saying she devoted her entire life to public service. That is not an answer, he argued, noting public service means nothing if it is corrupt. She stated she thinks these kinds of character attacks are inappropriate, but he argued that facts are not attacks. He noted he presented evidence, including FBI reports, congressional testimony, her own emails, and her own words, arguing these are facts, not attacks. He asked why anyone should trust her, demanding a yes or no on one reason Americans should trust her. She could not, sitting there unable to defend herself or justify 30 years of corruption and lies. She was unable to explain why trust should exist after so much documented dishonesty. The silence stretched for 20 seconds as cameras showed America a woman with no answer, defense, or justification. Ben Shapiro gathered his folders and looked at the camera, saying, "The emperor has no clothes." He argued that 30 years of power built on lies, corruption, and contempt were tonight documented and undeniable. Americans deserve leaders they can trust, who tell the truth, take responsibility, and serve the country. He stated she is none of those things, Secretary Clinton, and tonight proved it. He walked off the set, not waiting for closing statements or Tapper's attempts to restore order. He didn't need to because the case had been made and the verdict delivered. The evidence was overwhelming. Hillary Clinton sat alone at her podium, unable to answer the simplest question, why should anyone trust her? The old corrupt liar was beaten by the young truth-teller armed with facts. Logic had destroyed lies and evidence had conquered deflection. The video went viral before the debate even ended, with the "Why should anyone trust you, Mosiani?" clip hitting 100 million views by morning. By the end of the week, over 200 million people worldwide had watched Ben Shapiro ask Hillary Clinton that question. This wasn't just conservative media celebrating, it was everywhere. Transcending political bubbles with millions of shares and comments on Twitter and other platforms. The power of the moment was its simplicity, a simple question with no answer that everyone could understand. Even mainstream media struggled to spin it, with CNN's analysis being uncomfortable to watch as Jake Tapper pained to be balanced. The translation was that they couldn't defend her because the facts were too strong. MSNBC tried their best, with Rachel Maddow attempting to contextualize, but even she had to acknowledge the emails remained problematic. The networks played clips all day long, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. The story was too big, and millions of Americans were demanding to know why she couldn't answer. Conservative media was euphoric, with Fox News leading every hour with different clips and angles. Tucker Carlson stated this may be the most devastating debate performance he had ever witnessed. Laura Ingraham said this is what happens when someone finally holds power accountable with evidence, and Shapiro's own company crashed from traffic overload. But here's what really mattered. The most viral moments were not Shapiro's accusations, but Hillary's non-answers. It was her inability to say yes or no to simple questions, her deflections, and her complete silence when asked why anyone should trust her. Social media comments told the story, stating that finally someone asked what they've been thinking for 30 years. Even many liberals grudgingly admitted the power of the moment, with comments such as, "I voted for her in 2016, but he had receipts for everything." Comments noted it's hard to defend the emails and foundation donations when laid out like that. The political impact was immediate and severe, completely destroying Hillary Clinton's remaining credibility. Speaking tour attendance dropped, foundation donations slowed, and publishing deals were quietly canceled. The Democratic Party quietly distanced itself further with an official statement calling her one important perspective in the party's history. The translation was that she's toxic and they're moving on. Most tellingly, young Democrats who had supported her turned against her, wondering how they could have defended her and concluding Shapiro was right. But more significantly than just ending her career, the debate changed the broader national conversation. The conservative movement rallied around the message that lies have consequences and corruption will be exposed. Ben Shapiro's influence grew exponentially, with book sales surging and his podcast becoming #2 in America. But on his podcast the next day, Shapiro was measured, stating last night was never about him but about holding power accountable. For 30 years, Hillary Clinton has lied and gotten away with it, but last night she had no answers. The message resonated far beyond conservative circles, focusing on truth versus lies. The final image capturing the entire moment was shared millions of times. On the left was Hillary Clinton sitting unable to answer, "By small," and on the right was Ben Shapiro walking off. It was old versus young, corruption versus truth, and establishment versus accountability. The caption everywhere was, "The Emperor has no clothes." Hillary Clinton had spent 3 decades building power on lies, and Ben Shapiro destroyed it in 90 minutes with documented facts. The Empress truly had no clothes, and 60 million Americans had seen it live. Truth had won that night, as it always does, and facts don't care about feelings. Ben Shapiro did not destroy Hillary Clinton with conspiracy theories, but with facts. He used Comey's report, congressional testimony, and her own words against her. It was provable, verifiable, and undeniable truth about 30 years of her lying. She corrupted truth, destroyed trust, and built power on dishonesty. She used public service to enrich herself and her family, and called the American people deplorable. She never took responsibility until a young conservative armed with evidence held her accountable on national television. Think about what you just heard. All the evidence was laid bare, and she couldn't answer why anyone should trust her. That tells you everything you need to know, and he urged people to share the story. If you trust logic over lies, share this with everyone you know. He listed different symbols and what they represent in his final message. He urged people to share the story right now and tag 3 people who need to see it. Tag people who still defend Hillary Clinton and make them watch this, he said. Leaders like her stay powerful only if we accept lies and ignore documented evidence. Ben Shapiro showed America something crucial that night. You can't lie forever. The Emperor has no clothes. Share the story, spread the truth, and demand accountability from all politicians. This isn't about left versus right, but truth versus lies and honest public servants versus corrupt career politicians. Tag your friends who need to see this, share on every platform, and make this go viral. Hillary Clinton couldn't answer the simplest question, why should anyone trust her? That tells you everything you need to know about her character, her 30 years in public life, and who she really is. The young truth-teller beat the old liar, facts beat feelings, logic beat lies, evidence beat excuses, and truth beat corruption. Share this story now because truth matters, and because Americans deserve leaders they can actually trust. God gave us truth as a gift. Hillary Clinton corrupted that gift for 30 years, and Ben Shapiro exposed that corruption with facts. Now it's your turn to spread the truth. Share this story right now because truth wins.